Okay, so today I'm going to tie in Black Lives Matter and our ridiculous war on drugs here in the United States. So, first time filming on the new phone here. Hopefully, it doesn't come out too shitty. A little bit better, you'd think, given that it's a slightly newer device. But, like I said in the title, all drugs should be legal. And I mean that not just with respect to stuff like heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, but also the sort of life-saving drugs people use to manage legitimate health conditions. So a lot of the, we can think about, I can't think of the dude off the top of my head, but I mean, how many times have you seen some CEO in the news because they're jacking up the price of a drug that costs pennies to produce, but they're able to sell for, hundreds of dollars per pill, right? Well, the only reason they're allowed to do that or able to do that is because our government creates an environment where only certain people are allowed to produce certain drugs, no matter what. That's it. It's a government guaranteed monopoly that prevents price competition on drugs that nobody's using for fun. So it's like a double fuck because the person goes and looks at the CEO. Well, that motherfucker doesn't have the reins over the government. They're just exploiting a situation that your dear old friend Uncle Sam created for them. But that is a pressing issue, but I'm going to focus more on the recreational drugs in this installment here. Right now, before the United States had this just nightmare land prohibition on recreational drugs, it wasn't like society was falling apart. If anything, by all accounts, back then marriages were more stable, families remained together for longer, there wasn't rampant poverty, there wasn't crime. I mean, it's amazing all the things that having these recreational substances illegal causes, and it's a real fucking shame because I don't think that if Billy, the guy who wants to do some heroin, and by the way, if you do heroin, I don't see that as any kind of problem. That's totally fine. I don't look down on you or anybody else who uses recreational drugs or who even might be addicted to them. I know there's a lot that goes into that. And on that note, I think it's extremely damaging, the view that society as a whole has towards addicts especially. But, if Billy, the guy that likes to do heroin, could go to Rite Aid and get 5-cent, 25-cent hits of heroin, that's going to solve a lot of the problems that we see from our population of addicts right now. Okay, you're not going to see the overdoses because there's not going to be a risk of shit being contaminated with whatever the fuck. You're not going to see people on the streets because their drug of choice is artificially inflated price-wise because of the economic situation with respect to its distribution created by the government. Okay, and by extension of that fact, you're not going to see all these addicts breaking into places, stealing stuff. It's been this giant degenerative cycle that, well, now once drugs are illegal, okay, well, now the drugs are more expensive to get. Now they're a lot more dangerous. They're a lot less pure. It's a lot more damaging to you as a person to do these drugs. Okay, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but in general, if somebody's going to use heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine responsibly, it's not like all of them end up some kind of addict living in a trailer park forever, just fucked beyond belief. A lot of the reasons why they get so fucked up from doing that stuff is because of the situation we as a society have created for that group of people. So we've artificially made it much more dangerous, expensive, and damaging to be addicted or to use these substances recreationally. And who has that benefited? Has it benefited you, the average person who now lives in an environment that has substantially more crime, perhaps, because these drugs are illegal? No. Has it benefited the addicts? No. You don't, I know it's kind of a more modern approach to addiction, but there's no amount of legislation or force you can use to kind of stop that behavior in somebody. It's a very complicated thing, and shitting on people who are addicted to stuff certainly doesn't help. Something that's enabled and I think a lot more front and center because of the drug war. So that's kind of my stance on recreational drugs there. It's like they should all be legal. All this stuff should be legal. If you're an adult, there should be no other adults telling you what you can or cannot put in your body. To me, that makes no fucking sense. And where this really starts to tie into the whole Black Lives Matter movement is, I was thinking the other day about how, well, why is it so many people have negative interactions with police? Okay, which group of people most often get in trouble for drug use and drug possession? Okay, as adjusted for the percentages of their population, black people get in trouble for having prohibited substances a lot more often than white people. Is that because they do them more? I would probably say that has something to do with it, but it's probably more because, like, if you're in a demographic where that kind of thing's more common, you know, not just with respect to blacks, but with respect to that kind of socioeconomic sector, you know, those people, poor people, they're generally going to have no idea how to talk to police, how to work a police interaction, what correct steps to take. And it's a goddamn shame, because you'd think, you know, we're educated by the government for 13 years, yet nobody knows how to do something simple and basic, like, I don't know, how to interact with a police officer, right? So that plays a lot into it as well. The general rule of thumb, as a brief aside about interacting with police, is, you know, you do whatever the fuck they tell you to do. And I mean literally whatever. I mean, and I know you're going to think, well, what if they tell you to suck their dick or go play in traffic? Well, then you do it, because that's the world that we live in, okay? When you want to have all the goodies from the government that we enjoy in society today, there has to be a very big boot out there on everybody's throat to make sure people follow the rules and pay their taxes and blah, blah, blah. So I have to wonder if alone we didn't have the war on drugs, that perhaps Black Lives Matter wouldn't have as much gusto behind the movement, because there would be a radical reduction in the amount of African Americans, lower class people, middle class, upper class, all kinds of people that are in trouble for things that shouldn't even be crimes. And it doesn't stop in the United States with respect to drugs either. There's all sorts of other ridiculous shit. Like, if I have a friend who wants to buy a house, I can't help him with that unless I have permission from the government. How much sense does that make? Who wins? Who's the one that's benefiting from a regulatory structure like that? Is it me, the agent? No. Is it my friend? No. Maybe it's other agents who want to use technical loopholes to kind of fuck other people over, or maybe it's the government who gets some money, or kind of in the case as with these gun control folks, maybe it's just somebody out there got fucked over by a particular person in an industry, and in order to kind of feel better about that, they made it so that now there's all these restrictions and rules that help nobody except for people that are attempting to use the suffering of others as a way to sort of fantasize about the problem being solved. Right, that probably doesn't make sense. But it kind of comes down to the whole Karen culture thing, in the sense that, you know, okay, why do we have all these restrictive building codes that, again, help fucking nobody? They help fucking nobody. I can tell you from somebody who shows houses all the time, the jank shit you see in these houses, building code don't stop that shit. I'll tell you what building code does stop: the construction of new homes, which artificially inflates the value of properties, which combined with other factors makes it extremely difficult for people that are, again, most people on the lower part of the income spectrum to get going as homeowners. So, and it's not like I'm trying to say there's some giant conspiracy or something, but there's a lot of rules and regulations in place that I really think come down to this cultural aspect of moral policing that's been pretty prevalent in the United States for a while now. So I think if we were to legalize all these drugs, especially the harder drugs, that we'd see a huge improvement in a lot of these marginalized communities. But again, when you've had 70 years of this, there's only so much damage that can easily be undone. Like if we would have went back and said, wow, okay, well, it looks like, you know, if you're African American, it's a lot more likely for you to go to jail, and now we've got another fatherless home. Okay, that's not going to help the outcome of those children at all. So when you have so many generations of that, it kind of gets to the point where there's been so much damage done that you can't go, even a radical solution, so to speak, like, hey, let's stop having so many fucking victimless crimes be prosecutable in the United States. Everything's still going to be fucked, because the intergenerational trauma is just astounding. I know that's kind of a leftist term, and I don't buy it in the sense that it's woven into a person's DNA, but what does happen, to kind of think of, you know, a raceless example with the welfare state, you know, let's say you've got grandma who was born in 1962, kind of, or 65, whatever, whenever these welfare programs started really becoming more prevalent. Well, you're going to have a situation where, just by virtue of those welfare instruments being available, you know, there's a lot less incentive to stick with a guy, find a reliable guy. Why not just screw whoever you want? So now back in the 60s, grandma has mom. Mom's in the same environment, no dad there, has another kid, now there's no dad in that environment. Now, you know, we're 3-4 generations into this process where there hasn't been anybody throughout the lineage that has even had a fucking job beyond some minimum wage shit show. So there's a lot of knowledge and cultural wisdom and stuff that was passed down or used to be passed down from, father to son or mother to daughter that, once that chain's been broken, now we've got millions of people who, if they're over the age of 15, 16, 17, it's going to be very hard to kind of come in there and re-educate them outside of this just ridiculous nonsense that we've kind of come to treat as our cultural zeitgeist, I suppose. So to summarize, it's like there's a lot of victimless crimes in the United States. And when I say a victimless crime, I mean somebody shooting up heroin, right? There's no fucking victim there, just an adult making a choice on their own. So there's way too many victimless crimes in the United States that are requiring far more police officers than we need, who are also causing and leading to negative interactions amongst people who really aren't doing anything wrong at all. And that's just scratching the surface of that issue with the drugs and the economic crimes and everything. It's just like, I support police at the end of the day, despite being a voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist. I could touch on that later if anybody wants me to. But this is the system that we have. It needs police to function. Defunding them is a retarded idea. What we could do is just leave people alone. Stop with all the nasty laws. Stop with all the free money for being a fucking loser. And then maybe we would see some kind of improvement, again, over years. There is no quick solution. There has been so much fucking damage done to the lower classes, to black people, to white people, to the culture in America as a whole, that there is nothing that's going to just, boom, now we're back to a stable, society to live in. It might be fucked for the rest of its life. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But I think that if there weren't so many ridiculous, stupid laws and rules out there that lead to unnecessary police interactions, that, we'd probably have a much better situation to deal with. So hope you guys enjoyed. I think I'm going to come back with another controversial video later today. So yeah, happy 4th of July.